I would like to thank everyone for coming today. I want to let you know first who we are and what we are doing today. My name is Addison Vang. I am the Hmong Community Food Systems Outreach Specialist with the Community Food Systems Program that's a part of UW-Madison Division of Extension. Our topic for today is starting a shared use kitchen, and our speakers are Haley Edmondson, VP of Sales and Retention at the Food Corridor, Daniel Gara Jr., founder and CEO at Atlas Inc., Giovanni Elman Sotelo, Director of Operations at Atlas Inc., and Julie Cohen Bomar, Executive Director at Wisconsin Farmers Union. All right. And today's free webinar for food entrepreneurs and farm-based food businesses is brought to you by the Food Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Development Initiative, otherwise known as FEED for short, and it is a part of the UW-Madison Extension Community Food Systems Program. We're a statewide extension program that fosters equitable, resilient, and sustainable community food system development through research, evaluation, project-based partnerships, and programming like this. There are two feed projects. So the first is a online webinar series for food and farming businesses, which is this right here. And then later on in the year, in the fall, there is a 2 day summit. So keep an eye out on that. And lastly, I just want to make a quick plug to make sure to complete your short session evaluation survey at the end. It helps to keep programs like this low cost and to improve future programming. So there should be something in the link. And with that, I will turn it over to our guest to kind of introduce himself. We will be monitoring the chat, so if you have questions, feel free to just put your questions in, and we will try our best to get to your questions. All right. So I will turn it over to our three guests. Is there someone that wants to start? All right, Daniel.
Hello there. My name is Giovanni Aleman Sotelo. As what was shared earlier, Addison, you did a phenomenal job pronouncing my last names. Um, I work at Altus, and we also do a lot of work with our sister nonprofit. It is the Network for Health Technology and Innovation, and we're super passionate and dedicated to providing resources and education to entrepreneurs generally. And so we're really excited to be here and kind of tackle and brainstorm ways that feed kitchens are useful for many different purposes.
Got it. Hi, my name is Dan Gira, and I work with Giovanni here at Altus and the Network for Health Technology and Innovation. So working with entrepreneurs and figuring out ways to commercialize uh, projects is something that we just love to do. And then I would say, with some of the volunteer work that we do, I also serve on the board for the Wisconsin Latino Chamber of Commerce, and we're in the midst of getting ready to launch a commercial kitchen as well. And so part of what our goal has been, both from our standpoint at the Network for Health Technology and Innovation and with the Latino Chamber of Commerce, is really encouraging our entrepreneurs not just to think about the opportunities that they have been most familiar with on using a commercial kitchen, but really, one of the challenges that we look at is expanding the role that we can of how we can engage with folks, especially from a socioeconomic standpoint. And so we say entrepreneurship is great, ideas are great, restaurants are great. Let's push you to leverage Wisconsin's resources of advanced manufacturing and agriculture, and let's figure out how we can work with entrepreneurs to create scalable, investable ventures, and as we leverage what Wisconsin has. And so that's what we're really trying to do with our products at the Latino Chamber of Commerce and with our entrepreneurs overall. So we're really excited about it. And first off, my thanks to James and Addison and the team at UW Extension for pulling this together. It's really a privilege for Giovanni and I to participate and to chat and learn from all of you.
Julie, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. Hi, everybody. Julie Bomar. I'm the Executive Director at Wisconsin Farmers Union, and I'm coming to you today from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, on the western side of the state. We're a statewide organization. We've been around for over 90 years. Our job is to support family-scale agriculture, and we're the second largest agricultural organization in the state. And just in the last couple of years, we've worked to bring back an old building in Chippewa Falls. This has been our state headquarters for many years, but we bought a new building that's an old building, new to us. And we're working to make it a multi-purpose building that will help support small farmers as well as independent business owners across the supply chain and try to keep the money in the pockets of the small farms and the small businesses. And part of that venture is a commercial kitchen that is a shared use, and it's in part of our new building. So we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the benefits and challenges and successes might be to really helping try to create this in a community-based atmosphere. And I'll pass it over to Haley.
Thanks, Julie. All right, so my name is Haley Edmondson. I'm with the Food Corridor, and the Food Corridor is, we're actually a software company, but over the past almost 10 years, we've worked exclusively with the shared kitchen industry to, our mission is to enable growth and innovation in the food system. And we do that with tools to help shared kitchen managers operate their day-to-day facilities and manage their programs, as well as develop a lot of resources that are really industry specific. You might be on this call and not know a lot of other people, working in this space. And so our job is to make sure that you have the resources and connections to other people in the industry, so that you can do the important work that you want to do with your shared kitchen facility. So we work with over 400 kitchens on our platform, and many, many more that are just doing shared kitchen work across the country. So I'm sort of representing shared kitchens all across the country, but we also work with many kitchens in the state of Wisconsin. So thanks for having me on this call.
All right. Thanks. So I will start off with the first question. We do encourage everyone that's here to ask questions. So feel free to put in a question in the chat if you want. And we will get to them. So the first question is, what impact does a shared use kitchen have for a local food system? Julie, our start.
Yeah, I can start off that question. So we're, as a farm organization supporting small and medium-sized producers, we're very interested in looking at getting more profitability to our members, which are often those small and medium-sized farmers. And we know that in almost all cases, if you shorten that supply chain, then you're going to have more profitability for the producers in it. And so we know that for producers, they keep about 67% of the dollar, as long as that food can stay local. When they're trying to ship out to much larger wholesalers and corporations, then they tend to get much smaller amounts of that food dollar. And we also know that it's really good for the community as well. So when the food dollars stay in the community, then that helps everybody be more profitable. And we've seen the collapse of so many rural communities because we've lost not only more farmers on the land, but then we've lost the implement dealers and the seed dealers and the local veterinarians, and the school systems start to consolidate. And it's part of a larger trend across the nation that's really affecting rural America. And so we thought by investing in this 45,000 square foot building and help make it not only a building that supports restaurants who buy from our farmers, but also creating a commercial kitchen where many producers could come and do value added production and or test things out to drive their own, their own business on the farm, that this would be an opportunity for people to really not have to put out the incredible expense of doing their own commercial kitchen, but create an opportunity for those that want to get their foot in the door, and really try to keep those dollars here in our local community. So yeah, producers are going to get a lot more revenue, and hopefully the community is going to be better off. And I'll talk about how excited the community is as we kind of go forward in the conversation. But maybe we could turn it on over to folks who know about how it can impact individuals. So I'm looking over there at Giovanni and Daniel.
Yeah, no, I think Julie, that was a really great job of kind of community impact. And so, where Giovanni and I spend a lot of time working with entrepreneurs is really creating a path to accessibility. And so not having your dreams kind of held up by, oh, I don't have access to this, or this is what, I would love this idea, but we can't really afford this infrastructure. And I'll give you some examples. Giovanni worked with a couple entrepreneurs last year, one that did a kick sauce. And so she did she created her sauce at a shared commercial kitchen here in Madison, and she was able to sell it her sauce through the Hy-Vee retailers and be able and shipped it across the country. And that's the kind of entrepreneurship that we're kind of looking at to some degree, where there's some amazing opportunity if you just create that on-ramp. And so, and to Julie's point, what she as an entrepreneur was able to do is she was able to, because she could not afford the infrastructure of a commercial kitchen, but there was one here, was underutilized. She was able to pair up, create her sauce in large enough batches where she was able to now sell it and kind of gain some local traction. And that's pretty amazing. And so to think through that, as that entrepreneur started out very small and was able to inch their way through of working, farmers markets, and finally, getting a connection into a regional grocery chain, and then being able to get a website to sell online. I mean, I think if you had asked her a year before that, was that possible? No. And what the great thing is, you've got a new business, a new entrepreneur, leveraging shared space and really creating some economic opportunities for themselves. I mean, that is the American dream right there. Giovanni, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would align with Dan and the opportunities that are offered for the individuals. And, I would further say that there's a lot more use for it. And so if for any particular person that has a business idea, whether it be a restaurant or a food cart or something that's going to be non-perishable and can be shipped around the country, they will likely benefit from doing a trial and soft launch instead of going full blown and like buying an industrial kitchen and realizing that there was maybe not a future for this company down the line after the investments were made. So I can see this being a real practical, like, let's check if this is a fruitful idea and if it's solving the right problem and if it can gain traction.
What Giovanni is referring to is a lot of what we work with our entrepreneurs with, of identifying product market fit. So making sure that you are developing a product that people will actually buy. And so one of the largest mistakes that we see entrepreneurs make is to spend a ton of money, time, resource without testing that idea. So anyways, we'll turn this back over to Addison and James.
Yeah, so I want to open this up to all of our attendees. If there's any questions, I do see that there are quite a few folks that mentioned they are trying to start a commercial kitchen. So are there any questions? Oh, yeah. Let's see. So I guess since there are, based off of what, some of the folks that did mention, why they're here, what are some of the steps that took to developing a plan for a shared use kitchen?
If you want, I can talk a little bit about what we're looking at doing with the
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin Latino Chamber of Commerce, and maybe that'll help kick the conversation off.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I kind of said in my introduction, I love entrepreneurship, and we like looking at new ways to um, approach entrepreneurship. And so the Wisconsin Latino Chamber of Commerce was very fortunate. We received a grant from the U.S. Small Business Administration last year, and that was to actually create a new facility. And so one of the opportunities that we've been looking at as we create our new facility is we've seen a lot of demand for shared commercial kitchen. And so we also recognize that as we started to approach this, there's a couple things that a couple ways that we needed to approach it. And Julie's going to help me on the back end of this conversation. She just doesn't know it yet. She's going to help me talk about the capital stack that we're going to put together. But there's a practical reality for all the organizations that come together that want to offer this for the community. Is one way to think about it. It's an amazing community benefit. We've been able to rally the troops. People want to support it. And everything sounds good until people have to start writing checks and we have to figure out how to sustain it. And so it's kind of where the idea hits reality and finds out if we can really move forward or not. And so part of the way that we approached it is like we've stepped back and we said, great, what does this look like to open up and create new opportunity for our entrepreneurs? And part of it was, just as we figure out how we're going to execute against it. So the vision is we want to create a space in which people can leverage the shared commercial kitchen for their food carts and create products, right? So that's kind of number one. So then it was great. How do we need to outfit that? And how much space do we really want to give? And what does the future of a commercial kitchen look like? Is that something that we would have a commitment to in the long term? Because there will be replacement costs, capital investment up front, et cetera. So that's number one. So we decided the route that we had to go down is not necessary for us to write the checks out, but to really solicit third-party commercial support to help us underwrite the support of the kitchen, making a larger community impact argument. So I think that's number one there. Number two is we started to look at it, and like this is where you have to get very philosophical. Is it the intention of the organization to run a shared commercial kitchen at a break even or a slight profit, or will you be subsidizing the entrepreneurs that are working there? And I'll be very candid with you. The model that we're really looking at is that we want to be at break even or a little above. That there is, in the long term, we think it will harm the organization if we don't have a long-term source of capital to sustain the operation. And so then it breaks down to what is the business model for the commercial kitchen? So how busy can we keep it? And what is a realistic entry for the price point for our entrepreneurs to get there? And, and this also, for us, we're a membership driven organization. So, figuring out what our members can realistically support is really important. How we can support them into the long term is really important. And I'll be candid, we don't have answers to all those questions today. We know that we need to. Now we bought down some of those costs because we secured some grant funding and whatnot. But now this is where I'm going to bring Julie into the conversation because she's going to help explain how to build a capital stack to kind of mull through those different options and kind of figuring out, great, this is what we consider.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I want to make sure we get Haley in here too, because she's got all the practical advice for how to do all this. But I'll just talk real quickly about, this project that we did here in Chippewa Falls is a larger project. And so it attracted quite a lot of attention. And I just want to put that context out there. But the commercial kitchen is one aspect of this multi-purpose building. And if you think about economic development, one of the things that's really key is if you're going to do a big redevelopment, like especially on a historic building like this, you really want to make it have vibrancy 24/7, right? That's a very popular concept in economic development. It's really about having cash coming in 24/7 as well. So this is a multi-purpose building. It has everything from some apartments on the top floor, our state headquarters, and on the lower level, this modern food hall concept where we have different individual restaurants set up, individually owned restaurants that are buying from our farmer members. And we have a commercial kitchen that is available for general public use, but also to help support catering and things like that through the whole building in our event space. So it's a huge project. And so that might be also why we were able to attract some of the capital that we did. So after we figure out, let's start with the big things first, right? You got to put your biggest amounts together first. So that's your own cash injection, what you're going to put in as an individual owner. And in our case, we're a nonprofit with a business arm. And so the business arm is the component of our organization that really was involved in this project. You've got to secure a loan. We're a co-op, nonprofit co-op. So we believe in supporting other co-ops, which means we go to credit unions. So we went to a local credit union, we shopped around, we got the best interest rate and the best deal that we could on a long-term loan. We also worked very closely with the city of Chippewa Falls from the very, very beginning. And I gotta say, Chippewa Falls gave us so much love. It's a great business climate. And so that was really critical to our success. But being out there to go out there and start to sell the idea of what the building is all about was really key. And I think one of the things that we started with was this values first proposition. Instead of saying we're going to make this much money, we're going to put this many jobs out, or this is going to cost this much, we said, this is all about these values. We want to keep small farmers in business. We want to keep entrepreneurs in business. We want new entrepreneurs to be able to come in, and we want to support rural economic development. And that really was a winning proposition, I think, to a lot of the stakeholders that we worked with. So we were able to get the city of Chippewa Falls came through with some RDA TID financing. That's a very low or no interest loan for us. We were also working with our regional business fund loan, community development investment loan, American Express. I'm going down to the smaller amounts now. You get the big ones and then you got to go small. An American Express small business grant helped us buy some furniture. Wisconsin Main Street Association helped us with a loan for the facade. And Farmers Union Enterprises, which is a multi-state business. Their foundation gave us some money. The Royal Credit Union Foundation gave us some money through a grant. And we also, luckily, were able to get a Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Grant through the state of Wisconsin and USDA to help support the actual cost of the commercial kitchen equipment and some of those things as well. So we just really stacked that baby up. But we started with the big stuff first and then worked our way through what was available. And we were very lucky to hit some great grant and loan opportunities. But anyway, I want to turn it over to Haley because she's been just on silent and she can talk about planning and steps because she's the one that has all the nuts and bolts answers.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, I mean, they're like, I think Julie kind of hit the nail on the head with these are really, especially if you're starting from zero, these are really big projects that take a long time and kind of evolve over the course of planning and as you're building partnerships and things are kind of always evolving. So I guess one thing would just be to keep that in mind and, be easy on yourself when things take, a couple years sometimes, if you're starting from the beginning. But, there are a lot of resources and even some information in the toolkit that James posted in the chat earlier related to sort of more planning and fundraising and things like that if you want to dig more into it. But I think some things that I would share as you're thinking about a project and starting to plan it is really is connecting with other people who are already doing this work, because they might have some words of wisdom there for you. So there are a lot of ways to get connected to other kitchens and see what other people are doing, and it might give you some ideas. Um, Start building some, partnerships. They're not necessarily, competing with you or will be competing with you. So I think there's a lot of room for collaboration and experience sharing and expertise sharing. Um, we have a group that you can join if you're interested in being connected with other kitchen operators, called the Network for Incubator and Commissary Kitchens. We call it the NIC for short. And there's over 2,000 people in this group who are connected to the shared kitchen industry. And, some of these people have been doing this work for, 20 years. They've been doing this way before it was something that people were talking about. So, I would recommend leaning into other people who've kind of been there, done that, and they know how to talk about the funding. They know how to talk about the launching it and navigating all the health department conversations and licensing, all the way through to what do I do when people aren't cleaning up after themselves? They've done all the things. So I think that would be just my word of wisdom on the sort of planning aspect of it.
All right, thank you. So I was curious, TJ, you had asked a question. You had mentioned that you're a shared commercial. You have shared commercial space that partners with local farmers, and you're stuck with the funding portion. Did Julie kind of answer some of that question?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I think where we started with, and you see Scoops of Favor on here as well, is we have a lactose-free ice cream company. We're looking to partner with some of our local farmers for dairy, and we need kind of like that central place to collect, right? And we've talked with other people that do frozen foods and frozen goods here in Jacksonville, Florida, and they're all looking to do the same thing. And so my idea was, well, why don't we have a shared space where we can all partner together and get going. And so similar to Julie, what you shared, I think we have some city officials that are interested in the idea. So I'm in the planning phase trying to draw up that contract, and it sounds like there is grant money out there. But part of it is, okay, well, should I tweak some of my plan for that grant? Should I really just, kind of throw it out there on the table? Because sometimes I go to the conversations and it's like, okay, well, tell me exactly what you need. I need the exact dollar amount. And it's like, well, that depends on, how much I can really get. So I'd love to hear, more about that, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I can say I made a lot of trips to a lot of places, TJ. And it's sometimes, sometimes you definitely don't find the grant that fits your project. And sometimes you got to tweak your project to fit the grant. And I think both things are true. There in Florida, I don't know all the resources that you have available, but the Rural Development Association, RDA, might be a good place to go, because they have more that's available, especially to rural economic development. And then whatever economic development association you work with in the state. And I think, one of the beauties of marrying small farmers with this economic development model is, a lot of times I think economic development has failed to recognize farmers as an economic development engine, right? But especially in rural areas, man, they get it. They know what happens when farmers leave communities. They know what can happen for a farmer to have a small market opportunity in a larger facility. So I really think it's got some traction, but you need to almost bring it together yourself and sell it as a values proposition. And I'm sure that there's some other funding that's out there than Florida that I'm not aware of, but getting those local officials involved that have the decision-making power around, like, TID grants, TIF grants, the regional economic development authorities. I can tell you the Small Business Development Center saved our butts, because they really helped with putting together the cash flows that we needed to be able to go out and pitch this idea. And then they would update it for us for free, you know? And it was just unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe that that resource was available. And I kind of knew about them already, you know, but I didn't know them in all their glory. But yeah, they were terrific to work with, so that we had something to go to different financiers for. And then if it doesn't work, you can cut out that piece of the cash flow, right? Like, the commercial kitchen was one of the last things that we started to work on. We had to work on the big guns first. And then once we were able to like narrow that down a little bit, then we could go out and really start to pitch that commercial kitchen. So I think it's worthy to explore rural economic development. And I don't know how rural you are, TJ, but that might be a good opportunity, because you're pulling in the folks that probably are rural into that economic development model.
That's really insightful. Thank
I
you so
would,
much.
actually, I want to actually dovetail on something that Julie said. And I would say that 95% of the entrepreneurs that we work with, when they're looking for capital, they make one very common mistake. They don't ask for enough. And then they try to convince you that they can get to the finish line with even less than what they're asking for. And I think about this as somebody who has, been on both sides of I've been on both sides of this, fortunately. And so now I look at it, and I know that if you don't ask for enough capital, what you're trying to vision and make a reality will likely not ever see reality. And for reasons passing my understanding, most people don't want to give at the last mile. They want you to have it well thought out before you get to the last mile. And so, the way that I generally approach life nowadays is I kind of think about like the most ideal scenario possible that kind of makes me and my team happy. And when I have to start negotiating backwards, then I'll kind of figure out, well, we can, to Julie's point, we can pair without this, or we can do this, or we can make a course correction. But, you know, but figure out your budget and your needs, and then add 20% because you probably underbid it someplace, and then go out and ask for the money.
Thank you. That's really good.
All right, so there is one question here from Dina. Says she's a farmer building a shared use commercial kitchen with new retail store building. Have a few customers who want to rent the kitchen, and then I would also sell their product in my retail farm store. Is it more common to rent per month? And however, how many hours or per hour per day? Um, and I do know that
Mhm.
there are a few other shared shared use commercial kitchen attendees here too. If you guys feel like you guys could chime in too, feel free.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to sort of answer what I've observed working with a lot of different kitchen operators over the years. But if there is anybody in the audience that wants to share your experience, definitely I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. And Deanna, I love the connection that the kitchen will have with retail. That's a really powerful program to have both access to the space and then access to the retail and the sales channel. So that's awesome. Um, there's pros and cons to the pay as you go versus the monthly. In my experience, a lot of kitchens do tend to prefer a monthly option of some kind, even if you have some sort of different levels that are options for people. But the benefit of having people commit to some sort of monthly amount of time, even if it's just for a season, like maybe the busy season, and then they're not using the kitchen in the, off months. Um, you're probably going to spend a decent amount of time working with them and onboarding them, letting them know, what the health department requires, what you require, orienting them to the kitchen. And what I see sometimes for kitchens that only offer pay-as-you-go options is they invest all this time in onboarding somebody new, and then they never see them in the kitchen, and there's no revenue coming from that. So if you have a monthly option for people, you're going to be able to attract businesses that are actually going to want to use the space regularly. And that's going to bring in sort of, a little bit more consistent revenue to the kitchen. It's going to give them a better idea of what their costs are and what they're committing to in the kitchen. And oftentimes that monthly amount is tied to some amount of time in the kitchen. So that's really common. I would say probably 60 to 75% of kitchens are going to have some sort of option like that where it's a monthly. But there's also kitchens that offer pay as you go, and that's nice for people who need a little bit more flexibility, maybe people who aren't going to use it a lot. So if you're okay with sort of onboarding people who might only need to use it once or twice, pay as you go is an option, but I always tend to recommend monthly if that makes sense for the people who are working with you.
Thank
Do we
you
have
for
any?
answering that. This is Deanna, by the way. I answered, or I
Hi,
said,
Deanna.
hi. I live north of Milwaukee, about 45 minutes, and I'm also just trying to figure out what is appropriate rent. So
Yeah.
if somebody, if I wanted to do monthly, I know someone that's renting a kitchen that wants to use mine because I'm closer, and they rented in Milwaukee. I think it's $400 a month. But I don't know, is that like you said, there's different tiers. So if if I have, let's say, 3 or 4 different people renting this kitchen, I'm going to need some sort of system for a calendar to, is it first come, first serve, who can use the kitchen? And then what if somebody wants to use it, 400 hours in the month versus the other person, can't get in because I don't know how to do that. And I think this course that was posted probably would help me figure out that schedule, the food corridor.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm trying to figure out how to do that part.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I mean, yeah, I think that sort of the next logical step you made is, okay, great, I want to charge monthly. Well, how much? And then those are connected to hours. How do I track those hours? So there's a lot of technology that's available that, the food corridor is definitely a tool. There's other tools out there, but having something to help you automate some of that and make it easier for something else to track their hours and something else to schedule their time is going to keep you from having to do that. Typically with the monthly plans, the dollar amount is going to be connected to the time that they use. And so that's going to prevent you from just charging a flat rate and one person uses 10 hours and someone else is using 100 hours. So if you have a way that people will schedule their time, it's going to help you tie the dollar amount to the time. And that can also allow you to accommodate a littler business and a bigger business. They'll just pay the amount that's going to make sense for them.
So
and in terms of rate,
what's typically going rate for an hour in a kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, it can vary a lot depending on your location, what services you offer, what types of businesses you're working with and what they need. But I mean, it can range from $15 to $30 an hour on average, maybe more, maybe less, depending. There's a lot of different pricing. I believe there's some data in the shared kitchen toolkit that James posted in the chat that has some averages and I think some links even to other kitchens websites.
Yeah, I think I've heard that $20 an hour rate. I've heard that before too.
Yeah, if you told me you were charging $20 an hour, I wouldn't really think anything of it because that's pretty standard rate.
Sure.
Obviously, you want all the numbers to math out for what your costs are, but that's pretty standard, I would say.
Very
good.
I might comment Haley's comment there. I think that was really good insight. One of the things that we really push entrepreneurs to do is to really try to understand their numbers and the unit economics. And I think a benefit that you would be able to offer to folks that use your kitchen, and then I think would also be helpful to you, is to know what it costs you per hour to open up and to make your kitchen available. And then I don't know the circumstances of your organization, if you're a for-profit, not-for-profit, or if you're subsidizing time. But if you, like, the first and foremost, you need to know how much it costs you to open up your kitchen. And your entrepreneur needs to know how much it costs them to make a product in your facility, and what that cost is per unit, and what they expect to drive per unit. And so, and this is where really entrepreneurial education comes into play, because, you know, there are opportunities and times where entrepreneurs are working very, very hard, and they think they're doing very, very well, and they're paying to come to work. And the same is true for a lot of the not-for-profit organizations that are trying to do really great work, and they don't know to the degree that they're subsidizing their entrepreneurs or their infrastructure. And it really comes back to knowing and understanding your numbers and understanding the unit economics tied to those numbers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was actually very lucky to get the RFSI equipment only grant, so I was able to get the double oven, which I don't have yet. Double oven, a 6 burner stove, and fridge and freezer combo. I bought the sinks myself, and unfortunately, I didn't realize the extensive nature of a Type 1 exhaust hood with fire suppression system, and how difficult that would be to find someone to put it in. Um, and the person who put my pole shed up for my building, I wish I would have shopped around a little bit more. So some people were asking about how to pay for this, and the grant was fabulous to have. And then obviously trying to find some used equipment, but it's been a long process, and I still have a ways to go. But so if I'm trying to calculate my cost, I'm assuming I would include my, even though I got the grant to pay for this equipment, I would still consider that part of my expense, even though I didn't actually pay for it.
You would look at replace the expected lifetime of the equipment, plus the replacement cost, plus the cost to maintain it, plus your operating cost. And then if you look at it, there's what, like, 480 hours in a month that are potentially usable time or something like that. So it's taking your potentially usable time and then dividing it by what you can realistically schedule around. So that is likely going to be a really beneficial calculation for you, because what you may find is that when you factor everything in, you may be at $32 an hour just to break even.
Sure. Can you write that down somewhere?
Yeah, I think we've got a worksheet we can
Okay.
just back into here.
The financials isn't my strong suit.
We are here to help you.
All right. So that kind of like you mentioned the RFSI grant, and the next question here is actually from Grace. So I was wondering if Grace wanted to just ask the question, if she wants to turn on her mic and ask.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Addison.
Yeah.
I'm Grace. I work for Wisconsin DACCAP, the Department of Agriculture. I'm administering the RFSI grant and working with Julie and Deanna and the other recipients of this grant funding. So many of them are using their awarded funding to build out commercial kitchens. And kind of the part of the process that I'll be with them for is the actual construction of the kitchen, the equipment purchasing, renovations, kind of the setup before they actually become operational. And so I guess my question, it's pretty broad, but I was just wondering, I'm trying to build some resources and potential discussion topics for the future, since so many folks are involved in this same work. And I didn't know if you had any suggestions of things that might be most beneficial for folks in that stage of the process, whether it's like avoiding common mistakes or thinking about this one thing about food safety that you might not have thought of, or yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
One thing I would share is that when we were in the planning stages with our commercial kitchen, and we're still building it. I mean, we're not there yet, but when we were in the planning stages, we actually had a chef come through that had worked in a lot of different commercial environments, and she just gave us the lowdown on what kinds of equipment, what's easy to clean, what are the barriers that you're going to be running into, given that some of the folks on our staff who were writing the grants and working on the actual build out were not chefs. It was really helpful. So she gave some really good advice. Like if you get one of those giant industrial mixers that sits on the floor that's built into a wall that you can't move, you're not going to be able to clean around it. Just this things like that were very practical. I'm sure others have horror stories that they can share about what not to do.
For me, we put up a whole new building, and I wish I would have researched the pole shed company more, because he actually has never put in a commercial kitchen before. So when I told him this room is going to be a commercial kitchen, I had my exhaust hood guy come out, and he's like, "Oh, this is all wrong. I have 2x4 wooden studs on the exterior wall. They should be metal. My ceiling height is only 8 feet, and my joists are too close together." And then my builder said to me, "Oh, well, I didn't know you meant a real commercial kitchen." And so I'm actually spending a lot of more money than I really probably needed to be if the infrastructure was done correctly or done the way it should have been. So maybe as a suggestion for a workshop conversation would maybe be someone that actually puts in commercial kitchens. Or I learned a lot through D.A. Berther, who sold me my range and commercial stovetop, all the commercial things. So maybe like a commercial retailer maybe would be a good option to teach people about, if you get a six burner range, you're going to need this kind of hood. Or if you get, you need all the sinks. I mean, that's what everybody tells you when you research commercial kitchens, is you have to have your 3-bay wash sink and your produce sink and your hand wash sink and your mop sink, but they don't really tell you about some of the other pieces, especially this commercial exhaust hood has probably been my biggest hurdle.
I have a question for folks on the call. And I think it's a little bit of like perspective, because people look to do shared or commercial kitchens, are they typically, first off, are you doing it as like a 501c3 or a 501c6 or like a co-op like Julie, or like, and depending on like how you're approaching this, are you kind of trying to do it all yourself versus like engaging a firm that would maybe help with this? And to share like why I'm asking this question is, so we're in the process of doing this, but we've got like architects that are on the payroll to kind of figure this stuff out. And that's like their job, is to like make sure that we don't have these horror stories or like go through this. And so I'm just kind of curious, like where do a lot of people start this journey? So, Dina, where did you start your journey? Maybe you'd be brave enough to share.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes because I have another appointment. But I mean, myself, like most farmers, we just do everything ourselves. We are the accountant, we are the cleanup crew, we are the marketing person, we are everything. So my initial reason for putting up this commercial kitchen is just to increase value-added food products out of what I have here on the farm. And then when I was talking to customers, they said, "Oh, I bake bread in my kitchen and I would like to do it in a commercial space, or I already rent a space in, an hour away in Milwaukee and I want something closer home." And so I'm just throwing it together as I go. And I was lucky enough to get the equipment only grant for some of my items. So then I thought, well, let's just do it. So it's not a 401, it's not a nonprofit. It's I plan to use it for myself, and then other people just said, "Yeah, I want to do that too." So I'm just gonna have to throw it together.
Yeah, I can kind of co-sign on Deanna. We started ourselves. It kind of birthed out of the fact that we do have two local shared kitchens, but they're both very small, and none of them have what we need for ice cream. So it's like we have to create something kind of from scratch to provide our needs. And we found out kind of the similar story that there's other frozen food people who are in the industry who need exactly what we're trying to build. So from scratch, ourselves.
And this is Ingrid Doddart. I have Misty Dawn Farm. When I started building the building almost 2 years ago, I built the building and I got a bunch of equipment and I'm pretty much all dead in the water right now because the infrastructure has been costing so much money, the electric, the gas, water hookups, and the holding tanks and stuff. And it's hard to get loans for that because that's infrastructure, not capital. And so I've been kind of holding off on finishing the kitchen. I did get a buy local, buy Wisconsin for equipment, which is great, but I still haven't gotten the loans for the infrastructure. So lots of mistakes, lots of expensive things. I also ended up with a 10-burner stove and I'm working on a hood for that. So it'd be really lovely to get more information from everybody and have more of a mentoring kind of a thing going.
All right, so we got about 6 minutes left. So before we end, I would like to ask our presenters if they have any like word of wisdom or anything they want you kind of go away with. Let's start with Haley.
Thanks. Words of wisdom. Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully being on this call has made you realize that there's a lot of other people thinking about this work and doing this work, and people who've done it successfully, and people who are, at the very beginning of their idea as well. So I guess my word of wisdom is, lean into the other people doing this work and don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. And um, there's some resources that have been linked in the chat. So I really hope everybody who's interested in connecting and continuing the conversation, and like, Ingrid mentioned about, mentorship and connecting with other people that are doing shared kitchen work. There's a lot of opportunities for that. So I encourage everybody to take a look and join the network. So yeah, and good luck to everybody in their projects.
I would just say too, make use of all those resources that are out there. Really want to underscore that there is a lot more than you might imagine. And we just got a shout out for getting email shared and that kind of thing. Be glad to share as much of knowledge as we can. But there's a lot there in the state, I think, that in every state that people may not be aware of. And also don't be afraid of those foundations that are around you, like community foundations or credit union foundations, bank foundations, because they can sometimes help you get over the edge there. If it's like some furniture you need, or you need, something that is maybe going to be a little bit more visible, like, some learning equipment, that kind of thing. So sometimes you can find, you can get across the finish line locally, even if it feels like you're not ever going to get there. You just have to be creative and keep on trucking on. So it is a long haul, no doubt about it. Don't get discouraged.
Go for it.
So similarly, I would offer words of encouragement to entrepreneurs and to you guys putting on this great resource for those who need it. And so as you're stepping into the space, you're gonna be these things are gonna start becoming your responsibility, like managing the finances, managing the outreach, everything that is involved in putting your project together. And so, don't be overwhelmed. There are a lot of organizations out there that are there to help. Having a community is super important for you to like one vent, and then two, be able to reach out to the specific resources or even just get some guidance on anything you have in mind. So I would encourage you all to get in a hold of a community. Like things will get tough, and but you too can get through it. And so, I'll shamelessly plug the Network for Health Technology and Innovation as somebody who is super dedicated to going over just best practices. And so if you need a mentor, we'd be happy to figure out a way to get you that resource. If you have to figure out what your break-even point is or do a profitability analysis, like those things came up, and I know it can be intimidating to some. Like we'd be happy to help.
How can one really follow that? But don't worry, we'll try. First off, I want to really thank the UW Extension folks for the time and the opportunity to present here today. It was fabulous for me personally to meet Haley and Julie and to find some new presenting colleagues. So thank you both for allowing me to present with you. And James and Addison, it's been fun to work with the two of you as well. And I think, for me, this is what I actually heard on this call today is that we're talking about kind of food systems and agriculture and figuring out how it impacts the economy and our local economies. But a lot of us here are entrepreneurs, whether we're working in nonprofits or for-profits, and we somehow looked around one day and realized that we had a different business than we started. And so, for Dina, she started out kind of selling and then realized she's opening a commercial kitchen. And it looks like from the chat that she was not the only one to experience that. And so trying to take a step back and to be intentional about what your preneur is, I think is probably a number one takeaway out of this call. I think number two, and this is to Giovanni's point, which is I'm betting a lot of us on this call don't actually know our numbers. And so for us who are trying to put together a commercial shared kitchen or establishment, understanding what our individual organizations' unit economics look like, and then being a resource to our entrepreneurs that are going to come use that space and helping them understand their unit economics, because at the end of the day, we want to set everybody up to be successful, and you can only be successful if you know your numbers. And number three, there is community, but there's also really intentional mentorship. And I think that's the third thing that we're hearing on this call is access to those who have done it before us, and how do we meaningfully make that connection? And so and really that started with both Addison and James kind of pulling this webinar together. And so thanks again. And it was a real privilege to chat with everybody.
Cool. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone here, especially Daniel, Giovanni, Haley, and Julie, and just the fantastic participation that we had here from everyone that joined this call today. It really means a lot, and I think it just shows how the feed group and just Wisconsin is really lucky to have all of these people here to share all these fantastic ideas. So thank you for sharing the information. Also, just another quick reminder to please complete our short program evaluation survey for today. It keeps programs like this at no cost, and it really does help us improve our future programming. And up next here on the feed webinar schedule is another topic about finding kitchen space here. It's finding a kitchen and space for your value-added food business. And our colleague Patrick Nearing is going to be speaking with some entrepreneurs up there in Brown County. And please, just another thing to mark on your calendar is an in-person workshop that Addison is going to be doing called Profitability for Your Mobile Food and Catering Business. It's going to be a free workshop, and it's going to take place in Wausau on Saturday, March 8th. Space is limited for this workshop, so please find more information in the chat on that. Here's on the screen some other things that we have coming on. And if you want to go ahead, you could also just use your phone to scan this QR code for our survey. Once again, huge thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone is well and has a wonderful week. Stay warm. Thank you so much.